So these are our 3 topics for today, and I'm going to try and roll through them quickly here. Conservation, efficiency, renewables, and the big picture, which is kind of putting them all together. And so I'll hit those one at a time. Conservation, free stuff, right? It's actually free. Turn off unused lights. Yeah, everybody knows that. Okay. Adjust the indoor temperature when you're away. It turns out that you can save about 20% of your heating and cooling energy if you just turn the temperature down when you're away. How many people here are away during the day, typically in the week? Okay, huge amount of energy savings potential there, just by turning things down when you're gone. Maybe 10, 15 degrees. You can do that before you leave, or you can have a setback thermostat that does that automatically for you. Nowadays, there's these fancy little, things on your phone you can use to bring things up to temperature and down, as the case may be. And here's a big one: adjust your refrigerator or freezer temperatures. When I do energy efficiency assessments, it never ceases to amaze me how many refrigerators and freezers are out of whack. Refrigerators should be run around 38 to 40, freezers around 0 to 10. I've seen lots of freezers at -10. And being that much colder dramatically increases the energy use of that unit. Clothes drying, super simple. Moisture sensor control, we've got to get ours fixed, but when it works, it's great. That can save about 10–15% right there, just by not using the timer feature on your clothes dryer, having it shut off when they're at the drying level that you want. The lint filter cleans up pretty easily. The more that gets blocked up, the more that gas flame or electric element is trying to heat, the longer it's operating to try to get the clothes dry, because it can't get the moisture-laden air that it's taking out of the clothes out fast enough. The ducting, anybody here not ever look at the ducting coming out of the back of their dryer? It's a little hard to do. You've got to kind of climb up and look over, but it's a flexible metal typically, or plastic duct, and it's got lots of little ridges in it. So to the extent that there's a whole bunch of fat, it's this long, but you're using, you got it compressed down to this much. All those little ridges slow the air on its way out, and that, again, the more you slow the air down with lint or with the ducting, the longer it takes to cool or to dry the clothes. Do it when it's cool outside. So you got the windows open in the summer, for example. You're helping to not have to use your AC, right? Or you can use an indoor air dry rack, or even Mr. Sun to dry your clothes. Clothes washer, use cold water. So people that don't use cold water, a hot water wash is about, the hot water alone is about 90% of the total energy for that cycle. So cold water makes a big difference. Dishwasher, no heated dry, that'll save around 10%. Just let them air dry, turn the heated dry off. In the wintertime, open or close your interior shades, depending. One of the things, being a passive solar guy, passive solar means you're using the sunlight coming through your windows in the south facade, typically, of your home to help heat your home in the winter. It never ceases to amaze me how many south-facing windows I see with the drapes closed. Let the sunshine in. That's free heat that people are missing. That's free stuff. Close off unused rooms. A lot of people do that. Is that a good idea? In a lot of cases, it's not. And then natural night ventilation and cooling. All you got to do is run around, open windows. Lighting. Don't really want to say a whole lot about that, because I think everybody understands that. you know, use your brains and fingers, turn off lights when you're not using them. You can do it automatically with motion or photo sensors. Recessed can lights, those are these guys here. UGG, I'll explain that in a minute. There's all kinds of alternative light bulbs, fixtures, and switching. One of the things that drives me crazy is light switches that turn on like 12, 15, 20 lamps at a time. Really big in new construction, not necessary. And doesn't give you a lot of choice for, you know, turning on the lights that you need for the task or that you happen to be in the space performing. In the Energy Action Plan, a really great case study, Foothill Mercantiles, everybody know where that is, over on East Main. They're saving $2,800 a year from a lighting upgrade. They put in LED lights. It only cost them this much. So, you know, basically they're getting payback in about 1 year. They got a PG&E incentive to help, but even if they didn't get that incentive, that's a 2-year payback. Pretty amazing, right? Next slide, please. So, energy efficiency in the building envelope. This is a really, really big deal. Air sealing, way bigger than most people realize. Does anybody know what this is? This is your home. This is your home. And when most people think of air leaks, what do you think of? Doors and windows. That's the small stuff. The big stuff would blow your mind. I'll get to that in a sec. As far as the rest of the building envelope, and the envelope is just what envelopes your conditioned space, your heated or cooled space. That's where the term envelope comes from. And so around the envelope, in addition to leaks like a colander, you have insulation. There's some opportunities like cool roofs. And there's window changeouts, a real popular one that people I always hear, oh, I just changed my windows out because I heard that was the best thing to do. Maybe not. Talk about that. And then solar heat gain is another energy efficiency measure that can help you heat in the wintertime. If you open your drapes in the winter, open them up, let the sunshine in. And then in the summertime, closing your drapes makes a big difference. No, we'll talk about that.
Is that the order for the attic? I mean, is it for insulation, attic, floor, and walls?
I'll get to that in just a sec. It's a great question. So air leaks, common air leaks. Believe it or not, and this isn't my favorite graph, but I'm too lazy to make up my own. Let's pretend this is a crawl space. And you typically have in your crawl space heating ducts. And then you have registers. And I don't know if you've ever tried it or not, but if you have a forced air heating system, you can take one of those floor registers and just lift the register right up and look inside. And we'll see what that looks like in a minute in most homes. That's a huge source of air leakage. And where is that air coming from? It's not coming through the door. See, do we even have a door in this? Yeah, there we go. So this is what most people are thinking of, right? The air that's coming in at the threshold, seal there. That's nice, fresh air. Awesome. The air that's coming in from the crawl space, do you want to breathe that crawl space air? Does anybody like to go hang out in the crawl space and go, no, you don't. But that's where more air is coming into your home typically than through that nice little fresh air vent underneath your door. And most windows don't leak much either, so that's not an issue. And of course, what comes in, whether it's through the crawl space or the under door, must go out, right? And so it finds its way out through little openings in the ceiling, which are also maybe ducting, might be an attic, access door, any light or other penetration in the envelope. So you might have a light in the ceiling that's got an electrical box behind it. And around that electrical box, there's an opening. And there's little openings in the electrical box. And that's where the air goes out. So it's like a chimney. And the warmer it is inside and the colder it is outside, the more powerful that chimney is. And the air just rushes in and rushes out. The bigger the temperature difference. And the bigger the temperature difference, the more you're paying for that outside air that's coming in. Okay. So yeah, I didn't know that we were going to have these lights because I hadn't been here before, but that's a recessed light. And this is what it looks like with that with the pretty little cover off. This is called the rough opening, and this is what goes right through into the attic. So the little cover that's on there typically does not prevent leakage around it and into here. And then within the can, so it's like a coffee can upside down, right? There's all these little holes in it where springs attach and things like that. And the air just rushes through. When I do infrared video, these things just glow because there's so much loss going through them. And so what we can do in cases like this is these can completely be removed, and then something like this can be put in, which is awesome because it's super low profile. It goes right into that little space, and then insulation fills over the top of it. With most of these old recessed light fixtures, you can't put insulation around them because they get too hot. They'll actually catch fire. So most of the attics I see in Grass Valley and in Nevada County in general, the insulation's held back. And I can, in the attic, look right through and turn the attic light off or my headlamp off, and I can see all kinds of light down there. I can even see people walking around through these little holes in this thing. That's how big they are. So replacing these with something like that is a really good move. Okay, here's what it might look like when you take that register out of your floor. This is really common. Not quite this bad. I picked this one because this is especially egregious. Because you can see this can, sheet metal can, it's called a boot, and the duct connects to the boot. This can typically has a space between the can and the floor where it was cut out. And you can take your register off, put your hand down there. It's like there's a breeze coming through between this can and the floor cut out. And that's crawl space air. Don't worry about the air coming in under their front door threshold. That's fresh air. This is foul air. And this is a pretty easy thing to fix. Next slide, please. So we're going to have another presenter coming up next June 3rd. That's going to talk about HVAC, but real briefly, this is how you want an HVAC system to work. The air goes in the return, sucks it in, goes through a duct, goes into your heating and cooling unit, is then supplied, so we call it supply air, to registers in your home. And this is what we want, right? All the air comes in, gets heated up or cooled down, goes and flows back in again. Next slide, please. This is unfortunately the average house in California. As a building performance contractor, we like to get a little crass. And you probably heard the term or somebody say at some point, wow, that really sucks. Or man, that really blows. Well, that's kind of an inside joke in building performance because ducts suck and they blow. And here's how. There's leaks. When the fan is on average 20%, so there's situations much worse and not as bad, 20% of the air that's being moved by this fan gets sucked in via leakage. So where are these ducts where it's getting sucked in? Where are these ducts where it's getting blown out? Depends. This might be sucking air in from your attic. So you got attic air that you're paying money to suck in and distribute through your home. How awesome is that? Or maybe it's sucking in through the crawl space, depends on where these are, and vice versa. Now, here we get to the point where, I'm closing doors or equivalent, closing a register in the room to save energy. Seems logical, right? Well, not if you've got duct leaks, because then what happens is you're really exacerbating the problem. Or let's say your duct system is completely tight. and this is your situation. Then what happens is your furnace fan is trying to pump air into this room, but you got the register closed or the door closed. What's going to happen? Well, it's not going to blow this up. You know, it's not going to scatter building parts all over the neighborhood. What it's going to do is that air is going to find little leaks in the building envelope to get out through. And what goes out must come in, just like what goes up must come down. So you're paying money to push air that you've heated or cooled into the great outdoors and pull in outside cold air in the winter, hot air in the summer by closing a door. Not always a good idea. How much insulation do you need? This is our area here. I had someone recently who was not getting enough cooling in their upstairs rooms, and they had this vertical chase, what we call a chase, had the ducting going all the way up, serving the upstairs rooms, and they were not getting enough cooling. Solar customer, she called me up and she said, I got 5 heating bids, are all around, you know, $13,000 to $16,000. Can you come and help me look at them? Went over there and found out she had a partially disconnected duct right here. And so what was that doing? Well, that's why she wasn't getting any cooling to her baby's room or her kids' rooms upstairs. They were sweltering up there. So she was very game. Had nice, you know, pull down steps up into the attic. So we went up there and holy mackerel, look at that. There's feeling cool air up there. So I said, I think you've got a disconnected duct. So she had her handyman come and fix that and then sent me the results, and her bill just plummeted. Her cooling bill plummeted. And all of a sudden, everybody was nice and cold, chilly, and happy upstairs. Just partially disconnected duct.
Yeah, it's very, very common.
Very
We
common,
would like
yeah.
to know.
Thank you for, there's so much, we could go so deep on this. I think you want to go to the next. So, how much insulation do you have and versus what you need? In this area, this is kind of the minimum. This is what I typically see, maybe 3 to 5 inches I see in an attic. This is one of the cheapest things that you can do to your house, and it makes a huge difference. But before you do this, you want to go air seal all those little holes. And if you want more information on all of that, all you have to do is Google air seal, insulate, Energy Star, and do it yourself. Instructions, I mean, the amount of information that Energy Star has before the current administration shuts it down. Yeah, you might want to go there. It's amazing. But yeah, you want a foot plus, maybe a foot and a half of insulation in there. And it's really cheap. You just blow it in. Next slide. This is the floor. This is terrible. This is a typical floor. If you've ever crawled around in your crawl space, this is probably what you see. The insulation's hanging down. They use these steel rods called lightning rods, kind of push them up like this, hold the insulation in place. It compresses it here, takes a little air, happy air spaces out, and that reduces the effectiveness. It tends to not completely go to the end of its run, and there's a space there, and you can just see the air can go up like this and between the insulation and the floor, making it virtually useless. This is what I typically see. But you can do it differently. And there's lots of different ways to do it. In my particular case, I put it in there, I kept it all nice and fluffy, I butted it up against everything so there wasn't any little spaces where I could see the floor. And then I ran a vapor permeable membrane like Tyvek, which is an infiltration barrier, not a vapor barrier, but it's permeable to vapor, underneath, which holds it all in place and seals in all the juices. So, great way to go. Cool roofs. This really applies to a white roof, and I'll show a couple of examples. We actually did this back in 2004. I shared a building with the Contractors Association over off New Mohawk, flat roof, and we put a reflective coating on it, And the day before, you literally could not walk on the roof. It was way too hot to touch. I think it was like around 160 degrees on a 92-degree summer day. The next day with the cool roof, the surface of the roof is a couple degrees above the ambient temperature, which is also about 92. Reflects about 80%. So we did a coating on a roof very similar to this. There's metal products, there's membranes, which is like a material made out of a special type of plastic that rolls out. It's available in tile. Shingles, a lot of people don't like white shingles, but there are cool roof shingles that are colored. They just don't reflect nearly as much as a white does, but there's products available to the extent that you don't have a lot of insulation. So huge benefit in a case like that, because in a building like this, or maybe you have a building with a roof like this, but you don't have an attic. If you don't have an attic, it's very expensive to add insulation. But if you put a cool roof on, now all of a sudden in the summertime, it doesn't feel like a radiant heater at 105 degrees baking your face. It's going to be nice and cool. Windows, generally, despite what the salesman may say, much less cost effective than the other options. You can just make, when you do these, you can oftentimes need to make changes to your trim around the window or the sills. But again, shop around if you want to do a window replacement. It's not really typically going to pay off in terms of return on investment. The reason I include it here is because of comfort. It will increase comfort. And there's a little bit of energy savings there, because if you got drafty windows, or maybe you've got no insulation in the floor, like my daughter's house, in the wintertime she has to keep the temperature around 74 to be comfortable. You got to keep it much cooler in the summertime. The air temperature, if you don't have insulation in the ceiling, all of those things affect comfort. But in the case of windows, that's the primary benefit. You may also want to replace them because they're fogged from broken seals, or maybe they don't open and close right anymore. But on older windows, you can do repair of the weather stripping, or put in solar storm windows. Those are great for historical buildings where you don't want to, change the aesthetics of the windows. And then to prevent heat gain in the summertime, you can use a solar awning or a solar screen. Pass around a screen example. They will cut out, an awning or a screen can cut out 100% of the direct sun hitting the window. So in the summertime, walk around your house. Are there any windows getting direct sun? That interior drape is doing almost nothing. I have a little temperature gun. I go into houses in the summertime. Somebody's got the drapes closed. They can't see out. They're getting very little light in, and they think they're reducing the solar heat gain on that west facade. I'll point the little sensor at the surface. It might be 105, 110 degrees. So it's like a little heater, basically. You put that solar screen on the outside, it cuts out 90%, 80%, depending on what it is, as opposed to maybe 20 to 50%.